Yeah. Hi guys, how you going?
Terrific.
Well, that's good, Murray. That's very good.
How are you?
Well, I'm not too bad, but I'm actually asking this for a constituent who worked for the Department of Health and got the vaccine, and 2 years on, he's had his Comcare claim rejected on the grounds that the vaccine wasn't mandated. Now, this is a guy that can no longer work. He's lost his job because he can't get to work, and now he's lost his house. Why is it that Comcare isn't looking after people? So he worked for the Department of Health, and as he said, he was strongly encouraged on numerous occasions to get the vaccine, and now Comcare has turned around and said basically because he wasn't mandated to get it, that it's not the Department of Health government's problem. Have you got anything to say about that?
I would have to take that on notice, Senator. I'm not familiar with that claim at all. I just simply can't comment on that one. I think also, as you would appreciate, we're not able to go into the detail of individual claims. But even on a general sense, no, I'm sorry, I can't.
But what about, OK, so let's take it at a high level. If an employer mandates or strongly encourages an employee to get the vaccine and then they get injured by that vaccine, do you think the employer should take responsibility for that? Especially when it's the Department of Health, who should know what they're talking about?
Again, Chair, we don't generally do hypothetical questions in estimates. This has come up a few times.
Well, I know, Murray, that you call these vaccine-injured anti-vaxxers.
No.
You've done that before.
What I'm talking about...
OK, so how about you show some respect to these people and actually let...
What I'm saying, Senator, is a number of times over the last few days, senators have sought to ask questions around what if this happened, what if that happened, you know, what do you think about this?
So it's not a hypothetical, this has happened.
Well, if there's a particular case that you have a concern about, I don't know whether you've already raised it directly with Comcare, but that would be the appropriate way to deal with it, where you can put forward the exact circumstances
we've done that.
And Comcare to Comcare,
yep.
And Comcare can then respond to the exact circumstances. OK,
so I'll follow it up again. I just thought that it would be good to get a position from... Actually, I'll ask you then, Minister, do you think that if someone's been strongly encouraged to get a vaccine and they're injured by it, and this particular employee himself was encouraging people to get the vaccine, that the employer should look after the employee?
Well, again,
I mean, you've got a history of working in employment law. I'm not going to deal with a
hypothetical, and I'm not going to give you a legal opinion.
But aren't you a lawyer? Didn't you used to work in employment law?
Yeah, I did. And ministers, I've sort of moved on from those days. Ministers
well, Murray,
and
this
officials...
is the first time I've ever seen you short of a few words.
Well, I'm trying to get some words out, but you're interrupting me. Ministers and officials don't give legal opinions at the estimates table.
But surely this is a part of government policy that you could speak to? So what's the government's policy on people injured by a vaccine that worked for the Australian government? Should they be compensated?
Well, I think we're talking about Comcare here. I suppose Comcare could probably give you, if they're able, a position about how they've handled vaccine-related injuries, maybe something general like that. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying we can't. It's difficult. You can't really answer hypothetical situations about what if this, what if that. But we could talk about that.
Can I tell you what's difficult?
Just the reason why we don't allow hypotheticals is only from the point of view of because if you're basing it on a perceived fact and you're asking them to make a hypothetical comment about it on a perceived fact, then you're giving misdirect direction to somebody who's raising an issue. That's part of the reason, not the only reason.
But as I said, Comcare may be in a position to give you a general position.
They may. Sorry, back to my. If I can. It may be rather than all of us assisting each other. What if I just say? But you can definitely ask a question on the broader question about what sort of instructions do they give?
I'll finish with this
regarding what sort of instructions.
Well, actually, sorry.
How do they actually handle a matter that comes forward? And what would be the process? So you can ask those sorts of questions.
I think a question on policy just at the end of Senator Rennick's contribution was asked. That was specifically about what the government's policy is.
I'm just saying that.
I'd actually really appreciate the answer.
Well, let's say the three of us in rapid agreement. Are you in a group, Senator Rennick, to ask the question the three of us agree you should ask?
Okay, so what is the government policy on people injured by a vaccine that have been encouraged to take it by the Australian government?
Well, I don't know what the government policy generally is. I'm happy to take it on notice. If Comcare's in a position to talk to you about their policy, they would be able to do that.
We don't have a policy, well, from what I understand, Senator, we don't have a policy per se on COVID vaccines. We would assess that claim, be it for an injury or an illness, just in accordance with the Safety Rehabilitation and Compensation Act. And there's not specific provisions in that for vaccines or for COVID or anything else. And so we would apply the statute to the facts of that case.
So if you could prove a connection to the workplace, do you accept that the government has a responsibility to provide compensation to an employee?
Well, it's Comcare that provides the
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Comcare that provides compensation. In most of these cases, it is never a straight line of facts. There are always side issues. There are many things that come into play in this, and that's why it's difficult for me to.
It's a pretty straightforward connection.
Well,
very fit, healthy guy.
That's where you've got the benefit over me, Senator. I'm not familiar with the detail of this case at all. I'm very happy to look at it if you're able to, off the record, or not on public record, refer the name to me. I'm very happy to have a look at that and find out what the situation is.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks, Chair.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.